call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Ms. McKell?
Here.
Mr. Olson?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Erkins?
Here.
Mr. Rastegar?
Here.
Are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Being done, let's move forward. I'd entertain a motion for the approval of minutes dated April 24, 2024.
Move to approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. On to the monthly activity and finance report. Cody, Stephanie?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. You'll notice today I've got things in a little bit different in the slides, and so I get a chance to show you guys some of the new slides we've been working on, but also in the way that those are presented. We're using Canva versus PowerPoint today, so some additional features exist within the slide deck itself, and you'll get a chance to see those on some of our slides that we've got changed from prior months. I did keep any slides that were shown in the prior month and had a new slide with it. I've kept the old slide for this month alone, and then I want feedback from the board, and if you guys are comfortable, I will kind of retire the older slides and then use the new ones. So today it's a little long on the slides, but the content and the information is the same as it has been. So for our operating results for April of 2024, some monthly highlights here. We've had the Phi Gamma Delta pig roast on April 20th. That was about 150 people there, so we did a in-house pig roast. Boys and Girls Club of Ada County, a very, very large gala event. In that picture there is the lobby. One of our biggest video walls that we've ever put into the building, into the main lobby, was a really cool feature for those as they came into the building. And I don't know if anyone's attended that event, but it was a very cool entryway. Actually, that screen in the background, there would be a tumbleweed that would roll by, a horse that would run by, so it was kind of activated in the lobby space in a very cool way in that picture there. And then deconstructed s'mores, it was also the dessert, and the team just did such a great job, and they presented so well. So I took a picture, we got a photo of those to just kind of show what the pastry department continues to put out, this high quality services and quality goods.
Can I ask how you roast a pig?
We do it off-site, and then we bring it in and carve it here. So we have done one on-site. That's what the question was actually before the meeting started. But yes, we have a third party that will smoke the pig, and then we carve it. From an operations side, operations manager, just quick update. Alan Cushing is currently out on paternity leave. He had a little one about 3 weeks ago. So we've welcomed Everett Cushing as their baby into the Boise Center family. Alan has taken some time off. He actually stopped by yesterday, showed the team the little one, got a chance to kind of bring him in, but a few more weeks off from paternity leave there, and then we'll get him back. The team has just really done a great job stepping up in the absence. We've done, and through the board support, some additional layers within that department, and so we have another operations manager. They're co-managers, so that operations manager's kept things running as if it's almost been like there hasn't been somebody missing. So some supervisors, leads, and that all kind of step up to fill in that gap at this point in time, but we're happy that Alan and family are all doing well. Grove Plaza, it's springtime, so as you're going to notice, the fountain is back up and going outside. The team has been working on tree grates and kind of getting the Grove Plaza ready for the spring and the summertime. So a lot of energy and time goes into that, and just want to recognize their efforts there. And then we had a Rose Award nominee, Sean McKee, that I spoke about. Unfortunately, he was not the finalist that won, but we just wanted to recognize Sean's efforts because internally he continues to get recognized by clients, fellow staff members, just an outstanding team member, and we're very proud of Sean. It was a very cool night for him and his family to show up to that event. So I think they felt the specialness of what he achieved, and we were able to recognize him appropriately. From the event side, we did 25 total events in April. The largest 3 right there were very large events, about 1,000 attendees each. All of them 6-figure type revenue events. So Boys and Girls Club of Ada County, IHFA, Idaho Housing and Finance Association, the 2024 conference, and then IAWF, which is a Fire Behavior and Fuels conference, which is a wildfire association. So a lot of really good conferences and conventions, as well as local groups, gave us a really good month on the financial side, and we'll get into that a little bit later. From the front and center and from the Boise Center's food and beverage side, we served quite a few large events over the course of the last month. WCA Twin Luncheon at 740, Faces of Hope at 533, again, Idaho Youth Ranch, and then Boys and Girls Club over 1,000. So a lot of big events, and even on the Boys and Girls Club night, that was the same night that we had that Phi Gamma Delta. So several times did we have multiple services going on at one time within the facility. Staff activity. Several of us, 4 of us actually attended the IAVM Region 4 conference up in Tacoma, Washington. Really cool conference to be able to attend. We get a chance to connect with our venue manager peers. So this is venue managers from stadiums, arenas, convention centers all over the northwest of the United States, as well as Western Canada. As far as Saskatoon, Saskatchewan was one of the groups that was attending in there. So get a chance to kind of look and find our counterparts, find people that are doing things similar to how we're doing things, or learn from them in ways that they're doing things a little differently. Boise Center continues to be leading the way in a lot of different areas, and we're looked on in that region in particular as leaders, as a venue. And so I just want to recognize the board for the support they continue to give us in the way that we're able to participate in these associations. We were able to send 4 members, and I can't tell you how far that goes when I see the individual staff members when they come back from these conferences and what they can apply. And so Julie was able to attend her first one this year, got a lot out of it, and the amount of connections and phone numbers and emails that you walk away with is very important. Linda and Kay attended the Industry Exchange in Chicago for the sales team. Ali Rabordi attended Meetings Today Live in San Antonio in April. And then our Chamber Leadership Conference, which several of the board members in the room attended with us as well. So very busy month on the staff activity side. A little bit more on the sales side, conferences coming up in the next few months. My next IAVM, I actually will be taking over as the director of Region 4, so I'm currently the assistant director, and that happens in July at Venue Connect, which is the national show for that association. So duties will increase at that point in time. Boise Center revenues. So as I said, this is the slide that you guys have looked at historically. We actually had a record revenue for April. It just broke over $1 million. Fiscal year to date, we're just over, it's 5.04, I believe, is actually the number on the total revenue for the year. This kind of shows you how the slide has looked in the past, and I'll show you guys what I have worked on to create kind of a different view of what this will look like going forward if you guys would like to see it this way. April revenue is obviously at the 1 million, as I talked about. What this allows me to do is, using my mouse here, I can kind of highlight over any given particular month and show you guys where you can see the historicals without loading the data up with a whole bunch of numbers all over the slides. I can just highlight and really focus just on 1 year if I'd like, and it'll drop it out so you can start to see what 2024 looks like. As you can see, I remember when we were doing budgets, myself and Pat Rice and Anne Marie and all of us, we were looking at last year and feeling that it was going to come in very similar. If you remember December, we had 3 conventions right out the gate. That was unique to December. But month to month, it is actually looking very, very, very similar to 2023. And so we're kind of spot on that. What we have noticed, and I'll speak to this, and Stephanie can also allude to it in her report because we've shifted a few slides. What we're noticing is the board would remember when you're presented the budget each year, it's presented much more on an annual basis and doesn't get into the month to month. We're noticing some variances, and I'll use this month as an example. So historically, we've never broke $1 million until this month in April, or till this April. So in the budget, we had forecasted a $1.3 million month. I'm not sure how that came out in the month to month, what got presented to the board. What I can say is that 10.4 number on the far right is what the budget is for the year. We're gonna have no problem hitting that, but what I'm noticing is our month to month statement, we're $300,000 under budget according to the statement. It will catch up at the end because a month like this right here is currently forecasted in the $600,000 range. We haven't done $600,000 since 2021 when we were coming out of COVID. That's going to break $1 million month. So you're going to see this correction happen on our month-to-month statements over the course of the year. Now for budgeting in July, we're going to correct this and make sure it's fixed because I'm not quite sure how that happened unless it was wrapped up and just rolled up into an annual budget and the month-to-month variances weren't paid attention to. So we are paying closer attention to that going forward. But again, annual budget, we're at just over 5 million through 5 months into the year at this point in time, and so we're going to hit our 10.4. With that, I've shown the gross profit to the board, darkened up this. It's the same slide, just shown in a little bit, I hope, easier way to see the numbers and to kind of see the variances. Highlighted in green, our current percentage at 21.3 for our gross profit. April's gross profit came in at 25.3%, above the current fiscal year at 21.3, which is well above the goal at 15%. So continuing
Madam
to.
Chair, Cody, remind me about how we dropped so precipitously.
So that was due to COVID. We were not doing any business, and the board supported maintaining 30-some staff members full-time, protecting certain staff levels. So we were still spending quite a bit of money in 2020 and not making any revenues.
Oh, I mean, from 2016 through 19 versus 22 through 24?
Some of that is the cost of East coming on board. And then the other part of that would be capitalization of some of our capital funds. The increase went from $1,000 to capitalizing an item to $5,000. So several items that historically had gone under the capital budget, now we're hitting our expenses. So it's kind of a two-part.
That's, you know, you're going 10 or 15 points,
Yes,
50% less profit.
correct. A lot of that has to do with that capitalization of the number, and then on top of it, the expenses that we started incurring due to East. I can double check that, but I'm,
No, good, thank you.
And I know we had the discussion about, you know, there was the food costs in there, and then also just managing
labor
the
costs,
space.
so it's kind of, the apple's been eaten, that's a good point. Food cost, labor cost, all of our percentages of that as well. So
And I
it's
know
kind
that
of
that was a discussion of really trying to maintain that gross profit margin to where we don't dip down too low. So it was, do we reassess how
Yes.
we do the space or not? And it's really just revenue manage the space to see what fits best.
Yep, and we were seeing post pretty much the pandemic that those numbers weren't gonna come back to that 34% post Boise Center East coming on board, but that 20 to 15 to 20% we think is the reasonable number to manage the space going forward, so. As far as, this is the slide you've looked at for lodging room demand and revenues. This is what it will look like going forward. And again, you can kind of see the pacing. I've broke these out into two different slides. So one of them being the lodging room revenues. And as you can see, you can kind of start to see 2024 is pacing very, very similar to 2023, similar to the revenues at Boise Center. So it's looking like another very similar year. You can start kind of taking a look at how 2022, in some ways on the lodging revenues, we're very close with 2023. And then as you can start seeing a leveling off in 2024 is what we're noticing. Some of them have a little bit of an increase, but not much. These are in the millions. So last month it was about 16.9 million in total lodging revenues for Group 1, which is the district's boundaries. Room demand, so kind of in a similar way, pacing in a very similar manner. We're starting to see that leveling off of demand as well. And in March alone, it's actually down from the prior March. In the last 2 months, it's been that way. So we're starting to see a little bit of a leveling off in that as well. Lodging, occupancy, and ADRs. This is, I've presented it a little differently as well. So this is the slide that you've been used to. This one, if you take a look at the bottom line, that is your percentage of occupancies. And if you kind of look, they're actually overlaying each other, which is why I like being able to present this way, because that purple line is right over the top of the teal line. If you're noticing, they are pacing almost right in line with each other as far as occupancies go from month to month. And then same thing, this top line up here is your average daily rate, and it is falling in line. It's a little bit higher if you take a look at these. On your average daily rate, it's about $1.40 over what it was in 2023, but a chance to be able to see those and kind of what's happening from year to year. Metric guy that I am, I wanted to see these in an annual basis and kind of see what they were looking like from year to year. So this bottom line is your occupancy percentage. If you take a look from 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, they all kind of follow each other where they start. If it dips, it dips. If there's a dip in the ADR, there's a dip in occupancy. We're starting to see the first time they're actually going in two different directions, which is a very interesting just thing to pay attention to. It means ADRs are staying very strong, even though occupancies are starting to drop. That hotels are seeing that they can keep the ADRs higher and probably continue to fill them at a similar occupancy what they have historically. And so that we're noticing that. I forecasted out the rest of the year currently per the STAR report or the STR report, and we're seeing about the trend is leveling off if you kind of see it through the rest of the year at this point in time. So that's what these two are. These are our forecast numbers here. Any questions on any of the occupancy or kind of how that's presented? Any feedback? Awesome. Again, this is the convention pipeline that the sales team in Alley is doing. Really, you've gotten more comfortable with this slide as well, and I kind of starting to be able to digest it in a way that is helpful for me. One of the things that I'm working with the sales team on, as you can see, we're pacing a little bit behind on tentative business from the same period last year. That's what these two graphs here on the right show. So while we're about 18 total events behind at the tentative level, we're about 35 ahead in the pending level. So still seeing pacing. It seems like there's some hesitation on going to contracting as quickly as there was in the past. And then as well as just the amount of demand and finding dates and space for everybody also continues to be a challenge. But we were seeing a lot of COVID rebookings that I think inflated some of those numbers getting recontracted a little bit quicker. So I think that we're seeing a similar pace as what we've seen from the prior years with some leveling off. Again, convention's up about 6%, so continuing to feel good there. And that's getting creative with things in December and other months that historically we haven't really seen conventions in the past. Annual attendance. Again, you can kind of see month to month. I changed the slide as per Mike's comment last month where I had a different color for December. And I thought about it after I went home and went, well, that should have been reported as a fiscal year because I had a different color for December showing it was 21 because that actually is December of 21. But now I've broke them out per fiscal year and it's just an easier way to digest this information. Again, attendance continues to track up from prior months in April. It really depends on the type of business that we've booked. As you can see, December, a lot of conventions this year, so those numbers will fluctuate. Attendance will fluctuate based off of where conventions land or public shows tend to land. They can move those graphs quite drastically. And in March, Flower and Garden Show is an example of that, where you see that number go way up. That's because of a public show. So we're about 41% of our total goal from the attendance side year to date, with a fiscal year goal of 170,000, sitting about 67.5. So. Economic impact. I spoke about this last month, how we've kind of increased the numbers as we're capturing more of that local spend. That goal prior last year was last month was 35 million. So I increased it at the percentage that we were seeing by capturing that additional local spend that we weren't capturing before. It wasn't going to keep our goal at the 35 million because that would be very easy to achieve. So we took the first quarter of what we were seeing those increases come in at compared to what they would have been under the old reporting structure, and I increased the goal in the exact same percentage is how I got to that 41 million. So that is our new goal for fiscal year 2024. Again, about 41% of the way through the year, we're feeling pretty good that we're 51% of the goal to date. Continuing to see very strong feedback from our guest satisfaction surveys, and in particular, how would you rate your overall experience at Boise Center? Gotten 8 more total events that have filled this out since last month. It was 44, so we pace anywhere between about 8 and 11 responses a month is what we're noticing at this point in time. But again, nothing lower than a 4, which we're very, very proud of, and it really speaks to the team's efforts there. I need to update the survey results down here because that date isn't correct. It's actually through April.
And you're still seeing 30 to 40%?
Yep, response rate, yeah. Anywhere, it seems like it's in that 25 to 35 probably % of response rate each month, depending on which month. Some as high as 40 though. Challenges, so again, this is the slide that I kind of give Jody credit for creating or helping us create. Building maintenance is something that continues to be a big challenge, and a lot of that has to do with the Boise Center East building. So when I talk about capital expenditures and some of our needs for capital increasing, if you get a chance, I would challenge the board as they're leaving today to take a look at the view glass. You'll see some of the view glass that has the bubbles and that is failing currently. I've engaged our legal to kind of represent us and what we can or can't do from a warranty standpoint, what they're obligated to do. There is a note in the MDA this year explaining the kind of what the liability may be for this. If we were to replace all the glass ourselves currently, there's probably about $300,000 to $500,000 worth of glass, depending on what kind of glass, whether we go tinted, untinted, different levels of glass there, quality of glass. I would not go with an electronic glass on the 4th floor of a convention space again. So again, when I look over to my strategy, avoid early adopting for new technologies, that would be one of them where we were a first generation user and it was a first generation glass. So we're learning the hard way. The challenge with this glass, and those that I weren't able to make at the meeting last time, you gotta wait till it fails to be covered under warranty. So what that does is, that means we need to bring in a boom lift to replace the glass on the 4th floor. Takes a lot of coordination. It can impact our business and the events happening inside. So we need to do this in batches, if not all at once. So that way we're not disrupting the building. But you need to wait for it to fail to be covered under warranty. So there is this kind of back and forth going. The company did file Chapter 11 bankruptcy within the last 90 days. And so that's why we have legal on this at this point in time, because there's some avenues. We're still within the window where we haven't lost any opportunity to be captured in any lawsuits or any settlements that may come of that Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So more to come on this, but it continues to be what I call the broken glass syndrome is always my biggest thing that I tell people, let's take care of the building so we don't get that effect, and that bubble on the glass is not feeling good. So more to come on this. Boise Center East restrooms is one that, again, the more that you know, I'm going to put down use more traditional solutions. This is a new type of toilet that is installed in Boise Center East as part of the expansion. And these were created so you could clean under the toilet a little easier, but they're a wall-mounted solution. So they mount directly to the wall. The way that those were mounted, they're actually behind the surface of the wall, starting to slip off the anchors. So I have toilets now coming off of the wall, literally, as people are trying to use them. So, and it's happening across the entire Boise Center East building at this point in time. We've got some that are worse than others and some that are hanging in there, but we've identified the way that it was installed was not ideal. We're currently getting in and trying to figure out what that looks like, but there's going to be some repair and maintenance needed to secure our toilets back to the walls. So again, using more traditional solutions, it's great to be able to clean directly under them. You can put a mop all the way under them. With that comes gravity and the challenges if you don't mount them correctly or they're mounted to tile. The backing that was used, there's a lot of challenges, and I was actually able to put eyes on the mounts that they used, and it was actually mounted backwards is the best way I could describe it. Well, we would never have known because it was inside drywall when we got handed a new building. So
Is there anything you can go back to?
the installer and how we're kind of going down that avenue, but it's been 7 years since then, so that'll be a question for our legal as well. But at this point in time, this was something we discovered last week, so this is new, kind of right as I was putting the slides together, like, okay, let's highlight this. But it's all of them in this side. It's not on the west side because they were done differently. They're ground supported. POS Solutions, I'll recognize Julie. She's really taken on the brunt of this load, but we're looking at new POS solutions. That's point of sale systems. The current solution we have or have gone with prior doesn't allow us to get through service as quickly as we would like, so bar lines as fast as we would like. I'll remember Pat for till the day I die, him saying, don't make people stand in line to give you money. And currently, it feels like that we're doing that with our current POS solution. So we've gone back to kind of our old solution because it moves through faster, but we are looking at currently new solutions because our agreement for that older solution is up at this point in time or coming up. So Julie's leading the charge on that. I think we found one that'll service really well, and it's industry kind of wide, used in restaurants and in industries like this. So again, tried and true technology is kind of our strategy to that at this point in time. With that, I'll leave for questions. I will highlight one slide that's not in here, and it was because I'm not comfortable with the way it was presented before being accurate, and that's utilization. I want to make sure that that slide is done per the industry standard. There is a convention center handbook reporting standard that's out there that we kind of helped participate in. And the way that utilization, I want to make sure, and again, I don't think Ambry was ever doing anything intentionally wrong. I just think the way that the spaces were captured to compare us to other venues, to make it as usable of a metric as possible, it needs to be kind of started from scratch and then making sure, because there are revenue generating spaces and then there are shared spaces. You take out holiday dates. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that metrics to make sure the utilization is accurate compared to how other facilities are reporting. Once I have that slide fixed and everything back in, it'll be in by next month. So you will see kind of what I changed and how that looks from the prior, how it was reported prior. But utilization shouldn't cause, if you have questions or want me to send you anything on it, again, you guys can see from a revenue generating standpoint, utilization's doesn't tend to be what moves the needle for us, but it's an important metric to pay attention to. It also guides us when looking at potential expansions or more space. So that'll stand for questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, Madam Chair, it's the Boise Center revenues, which I think should more accurately be the district revenues, if I'm not mistaken. The slide that has the month-to-month of our...
Nope, that is not district revenues. That is Boise Center month-to-month.
Okay.
We have a slide similar to that shows you tax revenues, and you're going to get that from Stephanie here in a second. And that's the one you're probably thinking is the district revenue slide.
Yeah.
So that slide stayed very similar, but this right here, if you look at that 1.08 and 1.1 and all of those numbers, those are our Boise Center revenues from the last few months.
I stand corrected. Thank you.
But it's interesting that they're similar, right?
They are. We've noticed this as we've done budgets. It's weird. If we have a 10.6 million, taxes come in at 10.10 or 10.9, and then 11, and we did 10.7. So they are very much in line with each other, it seems like, from year to year. All the way back when they were 7 million, they were coming in very similar. And that slide has been pretty much, you'll get a chance here in just a second to see it from Stephanie's side. But that slide is the same slide, presented a little bit differently in just the colors and the way it pops.
Okay.
Okay. Feedback on the slide changes? Are you guys comfortable with me kind of retiring the older slides and using these going forward?
I am.
Anything else you'd like to see, numbers, percentages, that kind of stuff, please let me know. I can continue to drop these in, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing, at least from the ability to point to specific month to month or bring out a particular month for you guys if you have a question, because when you put a lot of data into a slide, it can very easily get lost in the mix of it. So with that, I'll turn it over to the report from the treasurer.
Good afternoon. Start of the treasury report. This is our revenue and expenses. As Cody mentioned, some of the variances are off a little bit due to the budget. We've already addressed that and won't continue to harp on it. It will be corrected then going forward as we enter this new season. Still working on doing some of these financial slides. As you can see, this is a great deal of information crammed into a nice little Excel square, rectangular. And wanting to clean up some of this. I have a tendency to like things a little more clean, a little more streamlined, and when you get involved in numbers as big as some of these are, definitely would like it to be a little more easy to understand. So we will continue to work on these.
Stephanie?
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair. Is this your first or second month doing these?
This will be well, I don't know that you can really count last month, but
Her first month presenting by her, pretty much on her own at this point. Yeah.
we're not through it yet. We'll see how much he helps. In this one, it's our tax revenues. This is the one that, I'm sorry, board member Jim was inquiring about earlier. We are on pace for another $11 million year, and you can see the breakdown here. This slide hasn't changed. These are our transfers. You can see the capital costs have increased a little bit for 2024. Some of that is due to the 2023 projects. The end of the fiscal year were carried over into 2024. So it is a little bit higher, not anything alarming. Our operating and our bond payment, very similar. There's not much variances there to have any concern. This slide is our investments. It shows where our cash position is, our fixed income. It will also just highlight what the yield is based upon our last monthly statement. Cody put in here the fiscal year to date total return at 1.947. Last year, the return was 3.686.
Now, it's going to kind of give me a questionable
I
look.
thought we were going up.
We are. I mean, the return, and again, what I'm starting to do is get into the reporting of the Clearwater analytics, which is really cool. It has some features in there. But I'm trying to kind of determine, is the fourth quarter normally pick up more on the percentage? Because last year we did the 3.68. So while we're going up, we're increasing, we're only up about 2% this year compared to 3.6 last year with our investments. So that's the metric that currently is reported out of the Clearwater side of things. But yes, that continues to be a question that I've got even for Clearwater at this point in time.
We are just the tip of the iceberg with regards to Clearwater and their dashboards. They have a great deal of metrics that we're able to use and report on. And it could vary based upon the quarter, what's happening. We also are in an election year. Those types of issues will impact the yield percentage.
And if there is something else on the board side that you guys want to see, and I'll meet with you, Kristen, on this side, and then as we get into budgets with the budget committee as well. But I think there's some additional graphs and slides in there that are really, really helpful, and I want to pull those into the board report at some point in time. But I want to work with Kristen and make sure we're doing that in a strategic and succinct way for you guys, rather than just uploading a bunch of data.
Do you guys have input on what you want to see?
I have a note, and I got to ask to make sure because I should have clarified. How many you'd asked last year? You wanted to see how many are lower percentage. Was that lower percentage of returns of our investments?
I heard that.
You had, yes.
I think, well, percentage, I think I was talking about non-financials.
Okay.
On some of the other reporting, which I think you're capturing.
Okay.
But, I mean, as far as money, like, I want to see how much we made in interest each year or each month, right? I
We
mean,
do have that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I was wondering, so you're talking about the year-to-date total return, that's mark to market, right? That's not
Correct.
the interest earning, that's valuing the the bonds based on
The overall,
overall that, okay,
Okay.
so.
that's
so
the
just
best
going
way.
to your question, Madam Chair, that would
Okay.
it would be a different metric to show to,
Correct.
if that makes sense.
Yep. That is the overall count change,
Got it.
year
Okay.
total. So we're still up, we're just not up as much as we were last year.
I'd also like, as the COVID years roll off, what our bonding capacity is, and so we can watch as it changes when that rolls off.
So kind of that last 3 years of tax revenues to know where our bonding capacity would lie. Okay.
And is that some formula that you can plug in, or do you have to get that evaluated each time?
Historically, to get a very accurate, we've gotten it evaluated, but I think that I know that I'm doing an introduction actually with our bonding individual coming up in the next week or so for Stephanie to get introduced to him. And he can provide us that information, but I'm going to ask him, am I comfortable or is he comfortable with us kind of forecasting that?
Okay, yep. Mike has something.
So, thinking, Madam Chair, to Commissioner Walker's point, I think that that'll effectively be recalculated once each year. So, once, for example, once the audit is reported or accepted next month, then you'd be able to take that number and put that into the metric. Then it will be flat for a year because it's based on the 3 most recent audited financial numbers. So then it'll be the same for the next 11 months until you got the next audit.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
I'll put it in the slides and then we'll just carry it forward each month because it will be an annual thing that just stays the same until the next update, so.
And you would know, I mean, as of the end of the fiscal year, you'd be able to know or guesstimate what it would then be once the audit's final, but.
And obviously, because we can see we forecast the tax revenue, so we could use some kind of estimations to get us some, what does the end of this year look like when we start getting close to it, if the board's curious, so.
Oh, did you hit that? Oh, good.
Oh, sorry, I don't know if I did.
No, you're fine.
If I did.
This slide is our cash balances. The number everybody wants to see is the one that's highlighted in blue. These are reported in millions, so we're sitting at the 26.2. As you can see, the net cash after debt is the 2.8. The stabilization fund is one that doesn't change. That one also stays very static. And as you can see, the debt balance hasn't changed either with regards to the budget year, so. And that is it. Do you guys have any questions? Further concerns?
Any questions?
We moved that very first slide on the treasurer's report was under the executive director report historically. Felt that was much more easy to speak to from the treasurer side. It gets into district and all kinds of combined as well, so. But if there is additional, I think that we're going to continue to sharpen our pencil on those last 2 slides, taking notes on particular interest income separated out on its own line. This is something that we need to make sure that's added to that last slide, but I will continue to take any feedback and adjust as needed.
I just had a thought, but, just wondering, I mean, I think it's too complicated for a report, but, how fluid the money is, right? Because it's 1 to 3 years, but how much money at any one point in time do you have to use,
Gotcha. Yep.
right? But I think that's,
So the liquidity of kind of our
yeah,
cash
liquidity,
investment.
but I think that's,
There is a really cool slide I looked at inside the Clearwater that I talked to her about actually at lunch today and said that's one that I think we would want to add in because it kind of shows you when those kind of fall off at 4-year, 3-year, 2-year, 1-year investments and how much.
because, I mean, you see the bottom line, but that's not, it's not like you could go write a $20 million check for something right now.
No,
So,
no. We'd have a little bit of penalty depending on how we pulled
Right.
out of some of those. Yep, absolutely.
okay,
Thank you.
all right. Entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
the audit report, which was initially scheduled for this month, has been put over until June. I've had a number of meetings with our auditors, and I've been focused on it in my capacity as chair of the audit committee because it's Stephanie's second month and Cody's first year, and Pat Rice and Anne Marie had their particular way of putting a report together. And Lee Miller, the partner, and I were chatting about that. The hang-up is not the statements. The statements are done, they're clean, the opinion's gonna be clean. It's the MD&A, management discussion and analysis. And I suggested that we don't need to rush through that. Give Cody and Stephanie till next month to do it the way they wanna do it, and the auditors to
Okay,
buy it.
okay.
Yeah, they noted, just wanted to see a few more notes in there about the kind of year-to-year changes. So we're adding those, and we pretty much have done it, but I told him, I said, when I got the extra time, I want to put the time that it needs into it with that extra time. So by the end of this week is kind of my plan at this point in time. I said, it'll be done, so that way it'll be back into the you and Lee's finalization, but I anticipate they'll be able to present next month. So
Does that
thank you for
inhibit
your support.
anything as far as timing?
Say that
Does
again?
does that cause a problem for anything?
No,
far as
it's
getting
the
the audit done?
18th, it's a
Okay.
little earlier board meeting next month, but at this point in time, that'll give us plenty of time.
Okay. Any questions about the audit? Thanks, Jody. Appreciate you heading that up. Okay, Ryan, ICA?
You sure can.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me back. Cody asked me to come in today, kind of do a financial type report, which, the timing of which works pretty well. It's kind of, if you were to view the facility being open kind of on a fiscal year basis, May 31st would be kind of the end of our first fiscal year. So I've tried to put together some slides that kind of talk about, what we've accomplished during the first year, specifically some economic data that worked with from Lucas Gephardt at Visit Boise, utilized kind of the different events we had at the facility, some upcoming events, and try to give you guys an idea of how we've done this first 12 months and what we're looking at over the course of the next 12 months. Some of these stats I kind of shared last or a couple months ago, but we've updated those. So through the first year, our swim lessons, which is kind of, again, that's what really sustains the aquatics center for sure. We've had over 2,300 unique participants. We've got 700 plus current enrollments. And again, I always like to remind people, we had hoped to have 350 by the end of our first year. And so we're double that, and that's been just a huge win for the facility. And it really starts to feed things into the other programs, whether that be swim teams, or we're seeing kayaking and paddleboarding, water polo. We're really starting to see those kids that are participating in lessons and then kind of graduate, moving on to kind of the next other activities that they may see while they're out there at the facility. So that's been kind of fun to watch. We have done just shy of 25,000 lessons through the first year. It really tells you the demand that was out there and what we've been able to do in the first year of operation. That's over 3,000 hours of instruction combined. We've had over 56,000 visits to the facility. That's users of all kinds. So that could be lesson participants or day-to-day users or swim team people, but 56,000 visits in our first year. And we employ 25 active staff members. So definitely more staff than we had anticipated, but when you've got a lesson program that's at currently double what we expected, then we certainly have to add more staff and more lifeguards and everything that goes with it. So that's been a positive for us. What I did is provide Visit Boise with kind of the various events that we had, gave them the numbers on participants, also gave them specific zip codes where those participants came from, and then they put together some statistics for us. So in our first 12 months, we produced 1.5 million in direct impact, 2.8, almost 2.9 million in total impact. That supports 612 direct jobs and 757 total jobs in the Treasure Valley. It's generated just shy of 50,000 in total state and local taxes. As it relates to, obviously, the auditorium district, that translates to 22,700 in room taxes. And we generated 3,000 hotel rooms in that first 12 months. As we start to look forward, I want to highlight all of the events we have on the schedule, because the schedule's starting to get more and more full, which is exciting. We just went through another round of meet bids, so I've tried to encapsulate everything that we have currently on the schedule. So starting in just a couple months, we've got a championship meet in July that we expect to have 400 plus swimmers, plus 300 plus parents. We've got the Western Zone Championship meet, which we held this last August, which was our largest event. We'll expect 550 swimmers again. We average 750 parents per night in attendance. We'll expect the same again this year. We'll host a high school meet September 28th, 29, that both Boise High and Bishop Kelly co-host. We are getting interest from all over the state, so we expect that meet to be significantly larger this year, especially from out of area visitors. We'll expect about 400 swimmers on that. The University of Idaho contacted us. They're going to host a college invitational meet at our facility in November with different collegiate teams from around the Northwest. We're estimating about 300 swimmers. That probably is going to land somewhere between 250 and 350 would be my guess. Heading into 2025, the Sawtooth Invitational generated a bunch of interest. We'll have another, 400 swimmer meet. And then we've got two really large meets happening in March, kind of back to back. One is Northwest Speedo Sectional Championships. This is similar to the meet we held this last July, except for it's in July we do it long course. This one will be short course. We do the shorter version of the races. And that'll have about 500 swimmers. And then the very next weekend, we're doing it's kind of the same meet, except for it's for age group kids. So it's really for 14 and unders that next weekend, which should bring more parents to the facility. So the next weekend may have the same number of swimmers. My guess it'll be slightly less in terms of swimmer count, but probably more adults traveling with their kids on that second weekend that we have that meet in March. And then in April, we expect Boise State to have another water polo tournament that'll bring in a few collegiate teams. This last year when they did it, we had some teams from California and Utah that joined Boise State at our pool for a tournament. It was a lot of fun. And then we've got another invitational meet that Sawtooth's putting together in the end of May. And then again, another championship meet scheduled for July of 2025. We do have a couple of meets that are kind of scattered into our 2026 calendar. But we'll start to see that 2026 calendar kind of take shape as we move into 2026 as well. I've taken all that data and kind of used the meets that we had in place to say, well, what can we expect this next 12 months based on those meets we have scheduled? And the numbers, are essentially kind of double what we saw the first 12 months. So we'll see about 7.1 in total impact, 7.1 million in total impact. It should generate just shy of 60,000 in total room taxes. That's about 8,000 total room nights. Again, our objective is to get between that 12 and 15,000 nights by the time we get to year 3, and we're kind of slowly getting there. So we like the trend that we're at. We just got to keep working hard and being diligent on getting those meets scheduled onto our calendar. So I'm going to stop there, and if there's any questions or anything else that I can cover for you, then I'm happy to dive into details.
Out of those meets, it was 1 or 2 of those are repeat, or how many of them are repeat that you've done in the past?
So all of them are, with the exception of, for example, the Sawtooth meets, which are local teams, who have seen local meet. Those things we'll see every single year,
Okay.
right? Because that's how those teams generate revenue themselves. The meet on there, let's see if I can go backwards so I can at least highlight a couple. One more. That Snake River Championship meet that we're seeing in July of 2025, we're also doing that in July of 2024. We expect that to be a repeat opportunity for us as well. There just simply is not another pool in the state that meets the qualification to host this meet, which is how we've been able to secure that for the next couple of years. So we'll start to see that one on a recurring basis. Those larger meets, the age group zone meet, those sectional meets, those will be meets that get bidded, that we have to place bids 2 years in advance. So we've started that process for 2026. So we're hoping to get 1 or 2 of those on our calendar for 2026 as well. So we're starting to see more of the local meets, local teams kind of generate their own, use of the facility. That obviously helps the facility itself, but it helps the local clubs. And then as a facility standpoint, we're putting out bids as often as we can for any event that we could bring into the valley, so.
And are you working with the Visit Boise on some of those as far as
Yes.
researching what water type activities?
In fact, one of the events that we've just submitted a bid for, worked with Lucas at Visit Boise, is we put in a bid for both the 2024 and 2025 U.S. Paralympic Nationals. So that'll be national championships for Paralympic athletes. Those will be the second or third week in December of 24 and 25. If we're chosen as one of the finalists, then they'll come actually out and do a site visit, probably in the next month or so, and then we'll go from there. So fingers crossed that we get that. It's a stretch in terms of what they need, but we felt like we could put together a solid bid, and again, Visit Boise helped tremendously with that effort.
Are there any non-traditional activities that you have seen come across, or that Visit Boise has seen come across? Kayaking, I don't know, scuba diving competition. I'm not sure what else is out there.
Yeah, nothing from a competition standpoint. We're obviously trying to bring those sorts of activities to the pool. We're interested to see what happens now that it's summer. We might see less kayakers in our pool and more in the river, but it's been a great place for people to start to learn that skill. And from the sounds of it, those participants are going to continue to come in and train at our facility so that they're comfortable to go out on the river. But I haven't heard yet. I'm not sure how we could bring a kayak competition, for example, to a facility like ours. But we're always looking for anything we can come up with. And Visit Boise's been great with identifying things that might be an option for us.
And as far as programming, what else are you looking at as far as programming the water space?
Again, Chelsea she's all over it. She's doing everything that she can. I think we mentioned last week, we've got summer camps scheduled for the summer. Those have been successful. I think that we've got 8 weeks scheduled. I think she said 5 of those weeks are relatively full. There's 3 that she's still trying to fill in. But again, kind of first round through the summer camp schedule, we feel pretty good with that kind of turnout. Again, like I said, the kayak program is coming around. We have talked, one of our former instructors does like scuba and deep dive training. We've talked to him a little bit about whether or not he'd be interested in bringing groups in for training. Water polo program's continuing to grow. We did do one kind of, it's almost like call it a conference or almost like a training exercise for younger water polo kids. A lot of them are from the Valley, but a lot came in, and they brought in a kind of a former U.S. Olympic athlete to come in and run that. So Chelsea's trying to schedule more of those for the future to try to help drive interest in water polo. I mean, anything that we can find to put in the pool, we're all ears.
After a year of operating, how are you guys feeling about the ability to continue to pencil it all out and make it all work?
Yeah, again, that swim lesson program has been great. We have our ups and downs with a few mechanical issues that we've worked through, but aside from that, I mean, we're penciling where we thought we'd pencil as of now, and we only see that improving as we move forward.
And as far as the facility, any hiccups or punch list items, wish list items?
Yeah, I mean, we're actually going to do our 1-year warranty walkthrough with CM. I can't remember if it's scheduled for the end of this week or early next week. So that's coming up shortly, and to identify anything that needs to be modified or adjusted. I think, wish list item, of course, we talked about this last month too, but, parking's always the prime issue out there. And we've done a much better job, I think, of handling that and getting people to understand that, which way to come in, which way to go out, where the street parking is available. I feel like the parking's been a little bit better the last few months. That being said, we know that there are busier times, especially when classes are changing, right? One class coming in, another class leaving. You've got kind of twice as many cars in that parking lot. As we get into kind of the fall season with high school events and some other events, we'll have some parking needs that we'll deal with. I mean, that's probably our biggest issue now. I think other items we have kind of on our long-term planning are having backup items. We want to put in a backup heater. We want to have a backup pump, things like that. If something like that failed, having something on site that we could immediately change out rather than having to wait 4 to 6 weeks for a replacement would be key. So those are the things we're kind of looking at from our kind of long-term planning.
And just for the board's awareness, I've engaged Ryan about the potential about getting that area that is currently not paved on the parking lot, looking at the cost of that. working with Kristen on maybe that is a potential project the district might be interested in to kind of alleviate some of the parking concerns that we've heard with the space, or to help the operator with using the facility in a more quicker, easier in and out, and also making sure emergency access for vehicles can get there. So we'll continue to look down that avenue as well, and I'll report back to the board.
So at one point, you talked about that space being an additional building with dive wells, but that's probably, is that pushed to the side for now?
Well, I think long-term, there's still possibility there. I think long-term, if you wanted to do another dive well, then that turf area is what gets moved, right? Or reduced, right? There's a lot of space that's being occupied. And part of it, like there's a large area out there that is being used for the T that was created for the ability for the fire department to come in and be able to do a U-turn and move out, right? If the parking was replaced and you could drive all the way around that zone, that T could be eliminated, and you've just created a lot more space. So even shifting a field or moving or cutting down that field that's out there would create additional space for future expansion. So I think those are all things that have to be prioritized as you go forward. But the space is, as designed, is still there for sure.
My brain's asking me the question, so I'm just curious I remember hearing you talk about the grand opening, about Idaho being the second most in child drowning. Seeing that number and the amount of lessons you're doing, when does that number get updated? I'm just curious, and it's not on your guys' burden to solve it. I'm just curious, is this helping bring that down?
It's a good question. I mean, I'd like to think so. I mean, obviously, there's a lot more people moving to the valley, which, both helps and hurts the problem. But yeah, I haven't looked for an updated stat. So that's homework for me, is to see if there's any updated stats on that, especially where Idaho stands in the country. We know we're making a dent in it, but how much of a statistical change that would make, I'm not sure. It's so much more about awareness and getting people across the state, certainly, to understand that teaching kids to swim, and adults for that matter, is vitally important.
And as you go to these bids for meets, if you're starting to see some reason why they're not coming here, let us know what that is. If it's something that we can address, something that we can fix.
Something that we can do within statute, or what
Yeah,
we can
for
do
sure.
to try to,
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
appreciate that.
Other questions?
I was just, Madam Chair, looking through my notebook, and I came upon these Greater Boise Aquatic Center naming opportunities.
Yeah, that's a few years old.
Did you get all those sold?
Some of them, yes. Some of them, no.
Well, there's still opportunities.
There's still opportunity out there, for sure. And we can create any opportunity for anybody that's interested, right? If there's somebody that's really interested in this, learning to swim, the sport of swimming, the sport of water polo, whatever it is, we'll create any opportunity they may be interested in, for sure. So, but there are definitely naming opportunities out there. Obviously, there's somebody that's got their name on the building, but there's a lot of other opportunities that we could present.
Hearing the Jody Olson Hall of Fame coming or something.
Sorry?
I said, I'm hearing the Jody Olson Hall of Fame coming or something.
And is that something you're still actively pursuing?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Other questions? No? All right.
right.
Thanks for the update.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Pat and crew, I don't know if you guys have an update or,
Yeah, real quick, as you all know, it's election day, so we don't have the results. But couple things. One is, what we're seeing this election cycle is a real pushback from what I call the radical side of the Republican Party. A lot of rank and file Idahoans have really put their resources together and are challenging some of this outside money that's come in from Texas, and millions of dollars flowed in from the Conservative Political Action Committee. That's being offset this year. So a lot of these races are receiving challenge races from a lot in these districts where they have been traditionally pinned down by what I call the radical side of the Republican Party. Up in District 1, Herndon versus Jim Woodward, that's a close race, too close to call right now. Then you go all the way down from District 2 to District 7, that's all the way to about McCall. There's no challenges. Those incumbents are going to stay. They're pretty right-wing candidates. Most of them are unchallenged. But as you start in 7, 8, 9, go all the way to 13, that would be basically, let's say Midvale, Cambridge, all the way to, through Nampa. They're all going to be challenge races. They're going to be interesting to watch. They're all close. Two key races in that are, you have Pro Tem Chuck Winder. He's in a tough challenge race. Speaker Mike Wells in a tough challenge race. And then the governor has endorsed 4 senators in that along that area in those districts, and he's endorsed those in primaries, which governors very, very seldom do. I've never seen it done, as a matter of fact. Then you get down into the Twin Falls Valley, one race down there, there's a Senate race, Alex Cavell running against the incumbent Glenada Zetterfeld. That's a close race. The governor's behind that. That could flip. And then as you go into District 28 up through 32, there's some more challenge races close. We're watching them very closely. Very important race there. Wendy Horman is going to 3-way race. She's the chairman of the Joint Finance Appropriations Committee. And then here in the Boise Valley, we've got 2 Democrat seats. They're open seats. District 16 vacated by Colin Nash. District 17 vacated by the passing of Sue Chu. And those will be watched here in Ada County. We're watching also here in Ada County the two races for county commissioner, and that's Brian Davidson running against Dornier. Governor Otter has endorsed Dornier against Davidson, and then Tom Daly running against Sherman Ullman, and of course we've all endorsed Tom Daly. But again, everybody's watching this closely, but this is the first time in 2 or 3 cycles, right, Phil, that we've seen a real coordinated effort on the part of Idahoans going out and trying to counteract this outside money. And when we see outside money, it's millions, and they're pouring it into Idaho. The governor has raised over $1 million just this cycle to support Republican candidates, and as I heard as of Thursday, he had spent $750 of it. And so I know he spent some into the weekend, so we'll wait and see, but it's going to be a very interesting election night. Different than what we've seen in the last 5 or 6 years.
Both the House and the Senate?
Correct. Yeah, both House and Senate will be up. Everybody needs to go vote.
In the Central Committee races, is there any chance of?
We don't know yet. I mean, but the one positive thing that's come from that is the Republicans, I think we call ourselves Reagan Republicans, and then the other ones we call radical Republicans. But we've gone out, the Reagan Republicans have gone out and put a lot of challenges in all those district seats, those district precinct seats, and I'll be curious to see how that turns out. But it's the first time, again, these challenges have not taken place for years, and finally, I think we're starting to cut into it. I'm heartened by the effort. Now, I don't know what the results are going to be, but it looks like we're starting to see people standing up saying, you know, we don't like what's going on, certainly within the Republican Party, but also in the legislature. I think there's some people looking at their district representatives going, that's not what we're sending you there for, sending you to the Capitol to do. And so there's a little bit of shift going on, and it's positive, but we'll wait and see tonight.
I know
Any questions?
there was an article in the Washington Post about it. It made it all the way there, so.
Yeah, that was a very interesting article today. So it's getting some national response. Yeah, it's very interesting. But I was surprised about this year is I had no idea how much outside money was coming into the state till they started really putting their finger on it. But out of Texas, out of Washington, Pennsylvania, big pockets of money, millions. And I don't think the Boise business community or rank and file folks out there really realized, we had no idea or understood the amount of money that was coming in, but we do now. Okay?
All right.
Next meeting will be interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Let us know what to expect for next season. Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda is executive session. Would somebody?
Yeah, Madam Chair, pursuant to Idaho Code 74206-1C, To acquire an interest in real property not owned by the public entity, I move that we go into executive session and do so by roll call vote.
Roll call?
Ms. McKell?
Yes.
Mr. Olson?
Yes?
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Erkins?
Yes.
Mr. Rastegar?
Yes.
Okay, Jim made the motion and TM seconded the motion.
Thank you.
All right. Back from executive session, was just discussion, and nothing came of it for the next item on the agenda, so we'll be not taking any action on item E. So seeing no other business before the board, the meeting's adjourned.
Whatever we're paying you, it's not